Welcome to another episode of Grizzmakes and the ongoing saga of the little Canta. Today I'm trying to get to see what's going on under the front end, trying to figure out about the broken engine mount and maybe learn a little bit more about this car. So welcome and see you on the other side. Georgie boy, what do you want to do? You want to go garage? Hey? You want to go garage as usual. Mr. Tail. So we're going to work on the Canta today, boy. You want to go work on the Canta? Is that your thing? Hey, George. No, Mr. Flickety Tail. Where are you going? Hey. Don't want you in there because I know what you do. Off he goes. Inspection time. So today's Canta time. This has passed its MOT. There's a few more things to do, wheel alignment, etc. But the weekly weather has been really rubbish. Not had a chance to get that down to the alignment shop to get all of that fine-tuned. But that's okay, we'll get back to it. So yeah, that's it. Right. Walking into shot, I think. Got cameras set up everywhere today. No idea what I'm going to get out of it, but anyway. Plan for today. First of all, welcome to Grizzmakes. It's been a while. I've been busy with other things, work, day job, and also we've had a bit of snow. We've had some bad weather, a lot of rain, so not able to get out here to actually work on the driveway. But today we're already in the afternoon. It's probably about 2 o'clock. And it looks like today I'll get an hour or so in. One of the things I want to do is get the Canta's front end up on the little ramps, take the front stone guard off and see if I can figure out where the engine mount has actually come unstuck, because there's certainly that engine bounces around when you rev it, which means that possibly an engine mount is broken off or a bolt has come unstuck. The whole front end actually is a bit wonky, and that's all interrelated. I think one of the headlight mounts is slightly loose as well, but that's a bolt I think that just needs replacing. So we'll see what we can get done today. Hopefully there's enough action here for a short episode in the continuing saga of the Canta, which really has a ton of work ahead of it. There's so much to do. But bit by bit, I think if I do a little bit every day, when I get a chance, we'll evolve this thing back into something sensible, drivable, fun, and hopefully at some point get it legally back on the road, whether it be as a disabled vehicle or as a driven vehicle for all sorts of use. But I suspect it'll go back on the road as a disabled vehicle. So there you go. Welcome. Please do subscribe. Click the like button if you like the stuff that we get up to, and in the meantime you'll see I've got George over my shoulder here waiting either for dinner or else, as usual, he just likes being around when I'm down in the garage. For some reason he likes this space, be it dirty, be it dusty, or just being around with a human. I don't know. So let's get going. Boom boom. That's interesting. Looking at the front wheels, they seem to be slightly offset to each other, which may be a design thing, or it might be a design flaw. It could be that the whole thing is triangulated and bent beyond functional use. Hopefully not, but we'll see. Let me get them onto this thing, onto the ramp, and get this front stone guard off. Break up, shouldn't go anywhere. Right, stood. Would it be the famous 10 millimeters? Yep. And we want a flat 10 as well. The downside of working alone is that you can't just put your hand out and have anything handed to you. You need to fetch everything yourself. I think it's time to move this camera to a slightly different position, so we'll do that. Right, different angle. You can see this whole front quite heavy duty bash plate needs to come off so one can actually have access to the rest of the vehicle. Everything is battered, broken, loose, etc. But that's part of the challenge, I think, is trying to get this all back together in one piece as a functional tool or a toy. Doesn't really matter, does it? Famous number 10. It just won't fit. Ah. That's one out. Now for the rest. Couple underneath. Well, 4. I suspect that this has been bashed around a few times, which has changed the alignment of all of these little bolts. That's why they're a bit of a fight to get off, because they're not that big and heavy. Should have done this a long time ago. That's much quicker. Right. Cool. Let's show you what I can see at the moment. So, This has been bashed, it's a bit bent, which is why it was resisting. That side's a bit straighter. Got little captive nuts in there, keeping it all together. Then you've got the V-belt system here. Obviously a spring to activate whether you're going forward, reverse, or in that neutral position. The spring will push everything apart. And then first reason I opened up here today is this. You can see when you look in there, the engine mount. Let's find some light. The engine mount is meant to be welded to the top of the chassis there. So I suspect take the bumper off. Let's just find the lighting, correct angle. Take the front bumper off, disconnect, weld it back in place, clean up, weld it back in place, and we will probably have a whole lot more joy, because everything else is malaligned at the moment. So engaging forward and reverse is a fight. Looking at the front here, you've got small little CVs coming out of the side of the crankcase here. Little CV joints, and then front wheel drive, as you know. There you've got the brakes. They are, I guess, single pot discs. Not sure what they come from. Not heavy duty, but they're big enough. And if you look at these front suspension pieces, they are swing arms if you want. They are quite substantial. Now, whether that be for people coming up and down pavements and being a bit destructive in their driving style, I don't know. You'll find when you look in here, everywhere you look, there's broken bits and smashed, bent and buckled. One of our biggest issues, our being mine, is actually, let me see if I can point this out for you. When you look in here, that there is a cable, and that cable is your forward and reverse gear cable, which is compromised because the minute the engine drops, of course, nothing is aligned. So the mounting where that actually goes into its feed to activate the forward or reverse action doesn't work. The belt, you can see, it's pretty rotten and old. That's probably why it slips and jumps and does what it wants to. But I can deal with all of that. It's just going to be a bit of time to get everything back together again. Looking underneath, you'll see it is incredibly simple. The exhaust comes out just here. It looks like it's been welded on before, but that pipe running there should really run, let me just point, from there out the back to just in front of the rear wheel there. There's actually normally a straight pipe that runs through. You can see the rubber hangers under the floor where historically that exhaust would have been led and then taken as a side exit further back. No V8, nothing heavy, but we did find out that this engine is actually a 337cc based on the registration documents at the DVLA. So that was probably good news, getting a so-called big block versus the standard 160cc that these were made with. So yeah, that's for today. I'm going to now see if I can get this bumper off. It might be easy, it might be less than easy. The sides of these protective plates bolt down somewhere inside the chassis. I couldn't even see where they bolted down to, but if I can get them out the way, it may or may not be of help. And I'll certainly try to straighten this one out on the right, on my right that is. Other than that, for the moment, that's as much as I can do. You can see nothing is aligned because the engine has pulled everything out of alignment. But that's cool, we'll get back to everything in time. Thanks for joining for the minute. Right, let's see if we can get the bumper off. That was the next job. One bumper. Well, I guess that's the bumper really. But still, front panel off. One more thing. Right. Get a better look in here now. Right, camera back in there. Handheld camera that works sometimes. A couple of things to look at. There's probably not a lot I can do today, but at least we have an idea of what's gone wrong now. So camera in, and first thing you notice is obviously the simplicity. It also has a horn, which is pretty good news. Now, these side panels are held in with teeny tiny little Phillips screws, so there's about 3 on each side, so I should be able to get them out, make it easier to work, service, fiddle. And on this side you can see how bent this one is, probably one too many impacts. Then you come into this, and this is obviously the chassis down this side. And what you find is there's lots of bits that are attached to nothing, so I'm not sure what these are for. There's one on each side, but then you look at that, and actually that is the chassis that's completely rusted through. When you look up underneath here, there's a big hole. So what I'll do is I'll clean this up and weld in a length of angle iron on 2 sides, proper solid weld, and then you can weld this back in place, which is a rubber mounted engine mount with a couple of nice little poly bushes, I believe. Looking back in here, you can see this belt is way too loose. Hopefully that'll come together with either a new belt or even just putting this back together as it should be. Then the last thing I'm going to point out today is, if you look in here, can you see how malaligned that cable is? This is the gear selector that comes in from the cab. With the engine dropping, that obviously kicked up higher, because if you look at that distance there where the engine is dropped, the minute you lift it, which I can't do with one hand, you probably find that that cable there will realign itself. I'm not sure just how damaged it is at the minute, but hopefully one can get that back together. A couple of bits of wire here. I still don't, there we go. I've just seen what I wanted to see all along. Let me first get my hand on some water, wipe this down, and then you'll get the surprise of the day, which is a pleasant surprise actually. A bit messy. And let me open, in fact maybe I don't need to open this up. If I take the camera, right, as I said, front end, let's see what happens if we open the bonnet. Can we open the bonnet? Yes, we can, a little bit at least. But what it allows us to see is that this is actually the engine that's in here. Now that's very, very good news. That's 11 horsepower and it's a GX340. I'm sure the guys that know stuff will know a whole lot more about this, but that's just confirmed that we have a so-called big block in there, which is always good news. For the moment, let's see, that's about it. I will get to the rest. As I'm looking, I'm learning. You can see the engine is actually mounted up here on the gearbox with the CVT, and the engine output up here on what I'm assuming is a centrifugal clutch drops down, powers up the gearbox, and then runs through the two CV joints out to the side, driving this thing. Right, a little bit learnt every day. That's good news, having that in here. Do we turn the camera slightly for those who can't read that quickly? Right, so one further look, maybe slightly different angle, and I think we've got the light on as well. But that is the engine mount that's normally welded up top here into the chassis. It is completely rotten away and torn away, leaving it hanging by, I guess, 1.5 inches down. So that would have been the original chassis, possibly rotten away. Plan is to clean up and weld in a significant length of angle iron from behind and underneath, so that there's good solid material for this to grasp onto. Disassemble, weld that back on where it needs to be. You can see it's a quite nice movable bush type thing, and I'll probably use a stick welder to get a really decent penetration on that as well. And then hopefully reassemble, and that'll put the motor back in one and allow that, which is your engagement for the forward and reverse drive in the gearbox, which is completely malaligned at the moment, allow that to then come back together again and work as a unit so that you can engage more readily from the cab. That's probably one of the biggest things to be sorted out. But like I said, yeah, learned a bit today. These little drives run through a separate gearbox that's then bolted to the motor, the bottom of this motor. And of course we found out that this is a GX340 with 11 horsepower. Considering the mileage this thing has done, I suspect most of the horses are still in there. It's only done about 3,700 miles if I remember correctly. So kind of more good news, I guess. The other thing is, of course, as always, clean up, clean up, clean up. You can see in there the mounts to the sides of the chassis have both been welded before by the previous owner, who said that they'd done it. I'm not sure if you can see that, but anyway, so repairs have been done before, which is always a good thing, unless the repairs are done to a terrible state or level. Centrifugal clutch, and as I said, certainly needs a different, if not a new belt at least. But that's it for today, I think. I'm not going to start welding now. I'm going to go off and cook some steaks. But this is the end of today's little episode. Thank you for joining. Most importantly, please do the like, the click, the subscribe if you feel it's appropriate. Leave comments if you've got education for me, something I can learn from this thing, or even more so, if you're in the Netherlands and you've got one lying in the backyard and you've got spare parts. I still need to confess that I haven't figured out what this rear glass is from. So the rear glass on this was smashed up before I got it. And I could always do with finding some rear glass that actually is intact, or knowing where this came from originally, where they sourced the glass from. So yeah, signing off. Have a good afternoon, and we'll speak again. Thanks for joining. So there you go. Today's episode, not very long, not very exciting, but really important to find out what was going on under the bumper, why everything was winky wonky, why the engagement of the gearing wouldn't work. So we now know with that engine mount broken off, that needs a repair. It'll hopefully put a couple of other things back in line and also allow me to get on with inspecting the rest of the moving parts to see if everything actually fits together as it should, and taking that front cover off has also exposed things like the CV joints. I can have a good inspection look at that, see if the CV boots are alive, see if they're torn, if they need replacing, etc. These are all things that need to be done. So for today, that's the end. Thank you very much for looking, watching, sharing, and please subscribe, like if you want, share this if you want, and if anyone in the Netherlands has more advice on running one of these little cars, by all means please put it in the comments. It's always good to hear from everybody. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Cheers. As easy as that, packed away in the dry. Looking forward to the next episode. Looks like a prize fighter now, with its front teeth knocked out. But we'll get back to that and reassemble it, make it into a good little car. Paint schemes, anyone have any ideas on wheels? How to make them maybe slightly wider? I think that's a 0 offset. And yes, please feedback.